The bigger the number gets, the more inherent risk. I mean, it's always a risk, but like, I mean, when you start pushing like north of 1,200 pounds in a squat and north of 950s, 4-digit bench presses, like actual 4-digit bench presses, like that's something different. When you start getting like 850 deadlifts, you know what I mean? Like you start, there's a very small percentage of people in the whole slew of the big picture that get there, more than less stay there. You know what I mean? I was telling you earlier, like it's not hard to get to the top. It's harder to stay there, and then it's even harder to rule. So when you're staying there, you're going back and forth, competing with somebody, and then when you're ruling, you're just kind of looking down on everything, and like you have to keep it all intact. And it's
so
like
then you have to be motivated then by the numbers.
Well, it's kind of like this. That's the only thing I've ever been motivated by. So people ask me like, what's changed? Not a fucking thing. Like I've been obsessed with numbers since the inception. There's not a thing I don't think I can do. You have to have a bit of like, I don't want to call it arrogance, cockiness. You have to believe in yourself. And, there's a lot of shit in this sport that will cause doubt. It'll cause you to doubt your training partners. And there's a lot of, like, I try to tell my guys, you're going to fail, you're going to get hurt. You're going to lose, and you might be here a while, but you need to be in it for the long haul. I was like, if you're not here for the long haul, I don't want you here. I was like, if you're mad your squat hasn't gone up 20 pounds in a year, well, it took me 4 fucking years to put 5 pounds on my bench press. I waited 4 years, and I've seen enough cycles of 4 years to know that 4 years is just about up. 2019, 2020, 21, 22. Oh, here we are in 4 years again. So me personally, like through the years, I've seen cycles of ups and downs, and I know, bad times don't last, but bad guys do. But you can't stay up forever, and you can't stay down forever, and you can't suck all the time. That's what Bob Code told me. Well, you can't suck all the time. You're bound to get one just as many times as you miss them. You're going to get one sooner or later.
Well, yeah, sometimes it does take years, for a PR to happen. And I saw, just in my time there, I saw a lot of guys leave. And it was like,
this doesn't work. You quit.
Just 1 year. One more year, this would have clicked. Because you would see the same type of cycle, like 3-4 years, right around that time period is like stagnant. Then boom.
It's because when it gets hard, they shoot up to this number. Yeah. Because they haven't done any of these things over here that really make you super fucking strong.
That's a good point.
And once they do, they went from not doing them to doing them, and they got a super strong, and now it's hard. You get it? It's like having a Bugatti. You know what I'm saying? When you want a Bugatti Super Sport and you're trying to shave a 0.2 seconds off the, you have a Bugatti goes 2.7. It'll do 0 to 60 in 2.7. You know how much money it costs to make it go 0 to 60 in 2.5? To shave, 2.2. It takes a lot. So when you get up to this high horsepower range, high level of number, it takes so much more to move it. And sometimes, it goes back to the cycle thing. I've hit things, and I've stayed in this realm, and then I make a big jump. And I just know that if I just hold on, that jump's coming. So that's kind of been my whole thing going, like some things I look at in the later years, shit takes time. You have to be rooted in a system. It's not an 8-week training cycle. It's not a 12-week training cycle. And I will guarantee you, literally 80% of you motherfuckers aren't doing it right. You know what I mean? You're taking pieces of what you think the system is. Though I hear people talk percentages. Well, I'm going to start with this percentage of this. It's like, but why are you doing that? They don't know the weightlifting manuals behind that, the Prelipin's chart, all that stuff, the distribution of if you squat this number, it takes this many reps and sets to sustain that number. You have absolute strength, and then you have like strength endurance. You have to be in shape to sustain maximal strength. A lot of people, they just want maximal strength, but don't want to do the shit to sustain it. That's why they hit a big number and fall the fuck right off down. And there they go.
Or as you said, they don't have to do it and then they just happen to get there.
And they're forced to. Think of how many times my whole thing was hypers. They would destroy me because I didn't do hypers. They would watch me. Did you do your fucking hypers? They would walk over there and cross their arms and watch me do reverse hypers. But you know what? I pulled 800 when I was 20 years old. You know what I mean? I pulled 750 when I was 19. You know what I mean? I had I did what the hell they said, and people don't want to do that. You know what I mean? It's not fun to do that. It's not fun.
No, most of it's not.
It's not fun. But you know what? There's like 30 seconds of doing something that no one else has ever done. You know, I've said this in some other things about I kind of look up to Urban Meyer and Nick Saban. You know, they're those two upper echelon coaches, and they're guys that have won at the highest level and they keep winning. And Saban more so in this instance, there was something he said. They're like, Coach, how do you keep going? You know, he's like, well, after we win the Natty, we go home and enjoy ourselves for a week, and then it's right back to work. Louis always says that nobody gives a flying fuck what you did. They give a shit what you're getting ready to do. And that's always been my mentality. I've never looked back, because when you look back, you're stopping from going forward. So I've never ever stopped and looked back at what I've done. I've never that's why I don't want to say sell myself, but I don't like to. I've done this, so listen to me. You know what I mean? I'm not here. I'm here to be the best, the greatest of all time. People ask who I'm chasing. Ed Cohen. You know what I mean? That's the greatest of all time. Everyone asks who's the greatest of all time. So I'm going to do everything I can to unseat the greatest of all time, because why not? You know what I'm saying? Yeah. There was Alexander the Great. There was Genghis fucking Khan. You know? There's so I guess that's just me, though.
With going back to the squat and the training and how you cycle the training and lay out the training, especially getting when the weights are heavier. I remember I used to compete against the guy's name was Dave Barno. Yeah, he's passed, and RIP, crazy motherfucker. Dave Barno, yeah. He squatted more than I did. So I would always be asking him, like, what are you doing? What are you doing? What are you doing? He's like, I remember him saying, look, at a certain weight, you can't keep hitting it every week. He said at that point in time, he was only squatting once a month. He said the real heavy ones, when it got real heavy for meet, he would have to lengthen the training phase, and then he could only go, because the squats wrecked him. Yeah. So the squats would wreck him. So the bench had to change when the heavy bench was going to fall. That had to change. So everything had to change.
You structure. I call it setting yourself up for success. Yeah. You complement. You have your workouts that complement each other. You don't run in and take a free. You don't do a big ass heavy deadlift and try to free squat that Friday and then put your shirt on the next week. You know what I mean? There's a way to do it. People don't understand that numbers. It causes damage, trauma. All right. You hear delayed onset muscle soreness, DOMS. You have delayed onset muscle transformation. You have shit that you do 2 weeks ago that will show up 3 weeks later. Shit I did 2 weeks ago is now hitting me now. Some of the stuff I've done. You know what I mean? So yeah,
So how does that play into the frequency then of your squat cycle? Is it, I'm going back to like Circumax and Crip, just shit like that. I mean, is it going to be 3 weeks in a row, or is it every other week?
So people, the Circuit Max is like one of the biggest misconflations of grammatical literature. I know. People don't know what actually Circuit Max is. All right, you know what I mean? It's just a fancy word for saying you take the heaviest weights 3 weeks out from the meet, 21 days, something like that. All right, and you wave into it. It's not like. Circuit Max does not have to be blue, green, and a purple, and you get what I'm saying?
Yeah, keep going. People need to fucking hear this.
You don't. Okay, so my whole thing, when I use tons of bands, my bench fucking suffered. So I don't use bands in the squat, like hardly ever. It's just me, because I feel it just sits there and does this to me, and then my shoulders are shot for bench, and I just can't. Excuse me, I just can't do it. And sorry, reel me in here.
Well, we were talking about how you basically auto-regulate the system is where I'm going here, right?
Yes. For example, I learned this from Chuck. So Chuck's whole thing was you free squat every fourth week. So, we would do a 3 week wave of box squatting, And then on that fourth week, if we were trash, usually it was just squat. But over the years, I've learned that I'll go through a 3-week wave, and the fourth or fifth week is like a free squat. Um, and and people were like, well, then how do you keep doing that? It's like if for example, if I'm like 15 weeks out from a meet and I got a free squat, I'm not going to be trying to squat, my third and fourth, third attempts and shit like that. I always, and this is just me. So we would go through, it's the typical West Side split of box squatting. You do 50%, 50 in a 3-week wave. Week 1, 50%, week 2, 55, week 3, 60%. And you do 20, 25, and 30% accommodating resistance. And it would go anywhere from 8 sets of 2, 8 sets of 2, 7 sets of 2. And up into some years ago, a lot of the bigger guys just washed out of West Side. So, different body types started coming in and shit had to change. So I remember when all these little fucking dudes started coming in, like real small guys that couldn't do 8 sets of 2. They didn't really benefit from that because something like, I remember their glycogen levels just replenish too soon. Like they need to do 5s and 3s, So then all of a sudden this shit turned into 5 sets of 5 and 6 sets of 3. And so that kind of like pushed little dudes up. But for me personally, it was always like a 3-week wave, pretty simple. And how you base percentages, people don't even know how to base percentages. You know what I'm trying to say? Yeah. Like it's like, hey, what's your best squat? Well, I squatted 800. It's like, what did you squat in the meet? I don't care what you did in the gym because I'm not going to base percentages off what you do in here. I'm going to base percentages off what happens in the fucking platform. Because if I base it off this and you can't, you know what I mean? They have everything asked backwards. They don't. It could be anything from not even putting your, box squats don't work because they make you squat high. It's like, then pull a mat. You know what I'm saying? Box squats don't work because you basically, in so many words, you can't get strong box squatting. It's like, but you can get very fucking explosive, and that then in turns translates into bar speed because you have more velocity and, I call it horsepower, but you just can put more output, and Louis calls it, max effort's the best because it recruits the most amount of muscle units. That's why, and there's just things like, he's gone now, but there's things that are always with me, that it's like he's back there. Like, you got to do this, but one of them is reps don't equate to absolute strength. So you're not going to, just because you can bench 500 for 3 sets of 3, don't mean you can bench 530. I mean, you might, I can see plenty of dudes that can bench 500 for 5 reps and can't bench 550. You know what I mean? I know I've seen guys that bench 550 for a double that can't bench 600 for 1. So it's like just because you do reps with high weights and reps, that doesn't mean you're gonna, because you're not straining that max effort. You know what I'm saying? So then it's like, it's real easy. It's like, so one day you're lifting heavy and maxing out, and the other day it's like you do all those reps and sets to build the muscle to support all that heavy lifting. And that's just so going back to the free squat, I know I kind of got sidetracked, but it'd just be a 3-week wave, and on the 4th week, if we were tore up, we would deload, typically into some kind of like belt squat movement. We would do like could have been a good morning movement. It's like West Side Book of Methods to the T. It's like everything that I do that's, you know what I mean. There's some things that from like Scott Mendelson that I've learned, and Donnie Thompson, and like people like, John Grove is one. I don't even know if that guy thinks I know who he is, but the chain squats. I remember I first saw him, Phil Harrington. That's one big thing that like pushed my squats over and essentially it's a board press for your squat, and it allows me to be at the same place every time I go there. So I don't have to have somebody call my depth. They just look at the chain. So like I'll set like with a chain squat, like, and this goes down to box squatting. It's like, if you do the shit how you're supposed to do it and don't do your interpretation of it, it will work, and it will work very well. Chain squats, for example, the progressive, I learned it from Phil Harrington. He was the first guy squatting 8 900s at 181 and stuff like that. And he learned it from John Grove. And John Grove was, North Georgia Barbell. He was a guy that, started that. Phil picked it up. Donnie saw it. So Donnie had a version of it. And essentially the best way I can bring it's like a board press for your squat that keeps everything in constant. People ask, do I pause? Sometimes I'll do like, I have a breaking parallel chain. That's why I never bomb in the squat. You know what I'm saying? Like I go to the same place every time. So yeah, like I said, I have a breaking parallel chain, and I don't set my depth in a suit. I'll before I even put my suit on, I'll go down, I pause in the chain, I take a camera angle, like, okay, yep, that's depth. Then I put my suit on to that raw depth, and then I keep trying to hit it. And a lot of the times you don't get there, but like you're always trying that. It's like when you get to the meet and you're getting that last couple inches, and it feels like you're down there for fucking an hour.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
It's like you get down there and you just know where you're at now because it's like programmed.
Now, do you lower the chain each week, or do you keep the chain the same?
It just kind of depends. Usually, when you're far out and you have to handle big weights, so like usually in this chain squat, for example, it was broken down in increments of 2, 4, and 6 inches, and then you'd have a breaking parallel one. Like if you have guys that can't unrack squats, or they unrack squats and fall all over the place and shit, they obviously need help unracking squats. So if you can't even unrack it, we don't even need to. You can't get down there. Why the fuck do I got to make that strong right now? You know what I mean? So it's a how was I saying it?
So the 2, 6. So you
So
how do you wave it?
Correct. So the 6 inch was like if you had problems, like I said, unracking squats, you'd go and do max. You just max out on it. You might go up to. I might have been squatting 1100 at the time, but I was doing like 1230s on 6 inches. And I just got to the point where I could unrack anything. Just, I don't have problems unracking weights, and it's probably because of that. But the most things to stay on are the 2s and the 4s, like if I'm starting off a training cycle, and I'm real far away from a meet and I need to handle big weights, but I'm not really in shape. Your body can still registers the trauma. You know what I mean? So when you're that far away, any trauma is trauma, you know what I mean? So you might as well cater it to you.
Yeah.
So what I would always do is I would start at like 4 inches, just below a half squat, and I would try to work up to a third attempt. So, I'm already, you're talking a 4-inch chain squat, I was getting up 12, 1300s, And then, the next week, you might go through a 3-week wave of box squats again or something like that, 3 or 4 weeks, and then chain squat comes around again, and then you might cut the 4 and start pausing on 2s, and then you might add an attempt. So, if I did, 12 and 1250 to the 4, I might shave off the 50 and go like 75, 1235 to a 2,